My father-in-law has informed me that it's Father's Day and that lunch is waiting. So I'm going to get started. I don't want to make him mad. We're going to be in Luke chapter 7 this morning. We're going to continue our walk through the book of Luke. I hope y'all know where it is by now. Luke chapter 7. And as an exercise while you're turning there, I'm going to ask you to multitask. I want everybody in here to put their hand up. All right. If you have Facebook, put your hand down. That was most of the room. If you have Twitter or X, put your hand down. How about Instagram or any other social media account? This actually went backwards to how I thought. In the first hour, Mark Arvin was the lone hand still up. There's several in this room. I'm proud of you. Why do we have social? All right, you can put your hands down. Why do we have social media? What's its purpose? To connect with people, right? To show people our lives, to keep in touch with people we don't live around anymore, we don't define it this way, but to influence people's opinion of us. To influence people's opinion of us, and for people to influence their opinion of us, and for advertisers to influence what you buy. That's, in the last 10 years, advertising has been completely upended on how they spend their money. They spend it on social media, on influencers, on ads, and now 6 out of 10 people who walk into a store buy something based on what they saw on one of those sites that we just talked about, on one of those platforms. 6 out of 10 purchase something when they go into a store based on the influence of social media. Well, we're not going to be talking about social media influence this morning, but we are going to be talking about influence and how you can have a kingdom impacting influence when we put our faith in Jesus. How our influence is supposed to change when we have put our faith in the one we call Lord. So, Luke chapter 7, I'm going to read 1 through 10. After he had finished all his sayings in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. Now a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, who was highly valued by him. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built us our synagogue." And Jesus went with them. When he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you, but say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him and said, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. Who's heard this story before? If you've been in church any amount of time, you've heard it preached, you've heard it taught, you've read it, you've done it in Bible study. And so often we who frequent church start to gloss over details in the stories. We focus on the main point, but we start glossing over just how miraculous and how amazing this account of Jesus' encounter with the centurion actually is. So I'm going to ask you to do something this morning that I don't suggest doing often, probably, because most of the time we're the servant needing healing, and that's the perspective we should read the story from. But this time I want you to read this or walk through this with me from the eyes of Jesus. I want you to picture what he is encountering as he walks through this. So, you're on the mountain, you're praying to the Father, and you call out 12 prayerfully from the multitude of people following you. The multitude of disciples that are following you, you call out 12 to walk closer with you, to walk in a more intimate relationship, to eventually be apostles, sent out ones. And then you preach the greatest sermon that's ever been preached. Whether it was on the mountain or the plain or both, probably multiple times this sermon was preached, you preach it. And then you say, "You know what? I'm going to go home for a little bit." So you return to Capernaum. Now you might be thinking, Capernaum's not home. Yeah, Capernaum is Jesus' home base during his ministry. Born in Bethlehem, raised in Nazareth, but at some point, Capernaum became home for him and his family. So you return home, and what do you expect when you return home. When there's a homecoming situation, you expect your family to run out, you expect friends, maybe a dinner, maybe y'all can sit there and talk about all the miracles you've been performing and how this good news is going forth. That is not what Jesus got. What he was expecting as he entered Capernaum was not what happened, at least in Luke's account. What happened was the Jewish leaders run out at him. What do you think he's thinking? What are you thinking? Here they are. What problem can they possibly have with what I've done? You're expecting opposition, and what you actually get is a request. You get a request for you to come and heal this servant of a Roman centurion. You're like, okay, I'm all about healing. Let's go do this. But then they actually add a caveat onto it that the servant's worthy of healing because his master is worthy. That takes you back a little bit. And it takes you back because a Roman centurion is not one Jewish leaders would often say is worthy or ever say is worthy of having someone do something for them. A Roman centurion would have been the opposition. It would have been the enemy of the people of God. He was the arm of the Roman government sent to Capernaum to keep it in subjection to Rome. If you're keeping something in subjection, do you think the people who are your subjects are very favorable of you? Probably not. He was a centurion, so he had 100 men under his command, and he was wealthy, and he was in control. Not someone that would be worthy. But Jesus is intrigued. You're intrigued, so you go to the man's house, and before you get there, friends of the man run out, and they say, stop. And it's not because the guy's already healed, or it's not because he died. It's because now they're saying the man's not worthy. He is saying he is not worthy to have you come into his house. He is not worthy to come out to you. So you got Jewish leaders saying he's worthy. You have his friends saying he said he's not worthy. What's going on? And then they added a little more. They said, he actually said he understands authority and that when he tells people to do something, they do it. And if you say for this guy to be healed, he'll be healed. And Jesus marvels at the man's faith. He marveled at this man's faith. How crazy is that to think Jesus marveled at something? Only twice in the Gospels does Jesus marvel at something. Here, and oddly enough, also in Capernaum, when he marvels at the Jews' lack of faith and the fact that he's not able to perform miracles. Marveled at their lack of faith, no miracles. Marveled at this guy's faith, a Gentile nonetheless, in power, miracle. I don't believe this was a new faith, though. I don't believe he all of a sudden saw Jesus and said, I'm going to trust that guy. He had come to Israel as a Roman, but at some point he had been transformed into one who claimed the name of the God of Yahweh as his king, the God Yahweh as his king. He was looking to the one that was going to come and save him, and when he heard of Jesus' miracles and he heard of his teaching and he heard of what he was doing, he said, that's him. That's the one that's coming to save us. That's the one that's coming to save me. And I believe this because if Jesus had just been an itinerant teacher in his eyes, he wouldn't have given him this credit of authority. He would have said, come on in, lay your hands on him, spit on his eyes, spit on some mud and rub it in his eyes. Whatever you do, do it. But no, he believes Jesus has more power than that. He had a unique understanding of the nature and the person and the authority of Jesus. His faith here is marvelous. His faith is what is saving him, and what's saving his friend, and what saves us is faith. But there's something more going on in this story than his faith that I find really interesting, and that is the amount of influence this man had on the people around him. He had an amazing amount of influence on the people around him. He was influencing Jewish leaders who were his enemy, at least originally. He was influencing friends, people that were most likely Jewish. It doesn't say, but most likely they were Jewish people in his house, dining with him, communing with him. He was influencing his servant. How did he get there? How did he get to this level of influence in the world around him that he was supposed to influence by submission? Not by living like a Roman centurion. Not by living like the Roman centurions they had seen before and the ones scattered around. A Roman centurion was charged with keeping peace. He was charged with carrying out executions. He could pretty much do what he wanted. He would make 10 to 15 times what his soldiers under him made, and they probably made more than the Jewish people around. He was wealthy. He was powerful. He could have used his influence to get whatever he wanted, but he used his influence to bring these people into relationship. He didn't do it by constantly pointing to the superiority of Roman culture and politics. He could have been trying to win them over to Rome, but he wasn't. He had been transformed. He had looked at Jesus. He had looked at the God of Israel and said, that's worth everything. And so his heart transformation began to show outward, and it became a transformation of people around him. He began mending cultural barriers and breaking down economic barriers and redefining the relationship of servant and master. He looked different than what they were used to. The God he claimed said, live like this, and he said, yes, sir. He recognized the authority of God in his life, and then later, when Jesus came on the scene, he recognized his authority. So let me ask you a question this morning. Is this what your life looks like? Is this what my life looks like? I'm preaching to myself just as much as I'm preaching to you. Do we look like people who have met the God of creation and been transformed? Are we driving people to Christ? Driving Christ to people? Or are we influencing them towards something else? If I could ask your coworkers or your friends to give me a little list of what you are, what would they say? Would they say he loves to golf? He loves to fish? He loves UK basketball? I'm 2 of 3. I don't have time to golf. Charlotte doesn't let me. Does she love to read? Does she love spending time with her family? Does she love Starbucks coffee? What would people say about you? Because that's what's influencing their life from you. Are you influencing them toward those things? Are you influencing them towards Christ? We are citizens of heaven, it says in Philippians. Citizens of heaven, here for a time, but so often what we offer the world looks like a morally improved version of what they already have. Just do whatever you're doing, just put a cherry on top of it, of a little extra morality, a little extra tithing, a little extra don't cuss, a little extra whatever it is, just whatever you're doing wrong, just do a little less of it. You'll be all right. The Roman centurion could have offered an improved version of what the Jews already had. He could have said, worship your God, pay your temple tax. Now let me show you about Rome. But he didn't. That's not what he did. So often we use the Bible as a guide to behavior modification instead of transformation. As Brandon said a few weeks ago, we try to fix the old heart and repurpose it instead of offering them a new heart, which we've been given. Now, you might be saying, I don't have influence. I don't have the level of influence that this centurion had. I don't have 100 people under me. I'm not in command over a city or an area. But yeah, you do have influence. I found a stat online. I found it on several websites. Take this with a grain of salt. But it said that according to socialists, the average person will influence around 10,000 people in their lifetime. That's average. 10,000 people that you're going to influence toward something. Maybe it's a good book. That's great. Maybe it's being a lifelong Kentucky fan. Awesome. Better than Louisville. 10,000 people that you're going to influence, and most of them you don't even realize you're doing it. How do we leverage our faith for kingdom impact? How did this centurion leverage this deep faith that he had for kingdom changing impact? Well, firstly, by the way he lived. He lived, I guarantee you, differently than a normal Roman centurion. The way you live, Edgewood, matters. Your faith in Christ, if it's real, will cause a shift in the way you live. It will cause you to progressively be formed into the image of Christ. That's the goal, is to become like Christ. It will force a moral progression. Now, I'm going to sound a little contradictory here because I told you often what we offer the world is just a morally improved version of what they already have, and now I'm telling you to be moral. But I am. Us doing what this book says do matters, and us not doing what this book says don't do matters. How we talk, how we handle money, how we don't lie, don't steal, don't murder, obviously. Don't do these things, all the negatives in Scripture that were meant to set Israel apart from the surrounding communities so they may be seen as different, are the same negatives where you are meant to be seen as different. Don't live like the culture around you if it's bad. But please don't take that wrong, because none of us can live a morally perfect life. Matthew 5 says, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. It should be our goal, but it's over time, moral progression. But it does matter. It does matter how we live. But when I say how we live matters, I'm talking about so much more than the morality in which we live. What I'm actually talking about is the tenor of your life, the harmony in which your day flows. I'm talking more pointedly about the joy in which you wake up every day and smile and say, the Lord is good, knowing that something bad might come that day, knowing that it might not go good. But I'm going to have joy anyway. I'm going to choose to have joy anyway because Christ has saved me. I bet this Roman centurion lived a life of joy. I bet he looked different than all the centurions before him and all the ones around him. He may have lived a morally improved life from where he was, but that's not what was intriguing people around him. The joy in which we live, the joy in which our life flows in and out day after day, that's what intrigues people. That's what makes them look at us and say, man, what's different about them? Why are they so happy? Y'all ever know anyone who's just so happy it's annoying? I'm not talking about being that. But I am talking about joy. Something that goes much deeper than happiness. Because there's going to be tough times. There's going to be seasons of your life where happiness is just not an option. But it doesn't mean you can't have joy. I bet he had joy. I bet he lived with joy. I bet he lived like he had met the God of Israel. So often, we as Christians start out with joy, and then 10 years down the road, we look like what I said in the first service was an Eeyore Christian. I sure hate this job. Hope Jesus has just come on back. I hate these people. That's not intriguing anyone. That's not making anyone look at you and say, what does he have that I don't? What does she have that I'm lacking? That's not how this centurion went about his day. It's not how he went about his work. The way you live matters in every point of your life. Every point. The joy in which you experience everything. But you spend, if you work 40 hours a week, you spend roughly 35% of your time at work. 35% of your life, your waking hours, is spent working. Another 35% sleeping. Another 30-something% yelling at your kids. You spend more time at work than you do with your family. Where do you think you might have an opportunity for influence? Do you work in a way that it intrigues people? What do your coworkers see in you? Do they see someone who is grumbling and complaining and putting in bare minimum effort and just wanting the paycheck at the end of the week? Or do they see someone who is passionate, someone with ingenuity and creativity and a detailed level of care and integrity? How do you think this centurion went about his job? Was he taking a little off the top from everyone? Was he going joyfully to the executions? Was he beating people? Or did the way he governed look a little bit different than the way the rest of them governed? What he did intrigued people. We can see that. People are coming to him. They're intrigued. The way we work matters. It's what the world sees about you. God's command in the garden was to go out, fill the earth, and subdue it, right? Influence the world. Genesis 1. God's command in Matthew 28 was to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Influence the world. They're both commands to influence the world, but so often we want to divide them up. We want to say this was a physical command, this is a spiritual command, and it's not. We are unified beings. We are spiritual and physical beings in a physical world. And what one day will be made perfect physical and spiritual world. And yes, the way we proclaim Christ matters immensely. The words we say to glorify Him and tell people about Him matters, but the way we work and the way we live matters too. Because it showcases who God is. If you claim Him as your King, you are a representative of Him. What you do and how you do it matters. Your job can be a reflection of the creative nature of God. It can be a reflection of His detail-oriented character. Or it can push people the other way and say, that Christian man, he's lazy. She's gossipy. I read a book recently by John Mark Comer. It's called Garden City, and in it, it talks about how we live and how we work and how we rest, my summary, in light of how these things come into union. And in it, he says, our job is to make the invisible God visible, to mirror and mimic what He is like to the world. We can glorify God by doing our work in such a way that we make the invisible God visible by what we do and how we do it. You are His representative in this world, and how you live and how you work matters immensely because people are looking at you as a reflection of Him. So when they saw this centurion claiming the name of Yahweh as his king, the way he lived reflected a change. What we say matters, but what we do often matters more. If you have kids, you know that, because you can tell them all kinds of things, but if they see you operating differently, they are going to call it out. Charlotte often wants to know why I can have ice cream and she can't, because I'll go to sleep after I have it, and she won't. Ever. We can't live one way and talk another way. I sat under this pastor for a while, and he was an old country pastor, and just about once a month he would work into his sermon this phrase that you can't run with the rabbits and hunt with the hounds, because the rabbits will smell the hounds on you and the hounds are going to smell the rabbits on you. His point was you can't be a Christian on Sunday and live like the world the rest of the week, because the church is going to smell the world on you and the world is going to smell the church on you, and you are going to be effective nowhere. You don't have a place at that point. If you want to be the world, be the world. If you want to be the church, be the church. But you can't live like the world and have a Christ-impacting influence on them. You have to live like you've met God. It is Father's Day. I'm not going to leave you out, dads. It's not Father's Day if you don't get called out for something. Did y'all know Mother's Day is a day for mothers to rest and fathers to spend quality time with their kids, deservedly rest. And Father's Day is a day for mothers to rest and fathers to spend quality time with kids. That's my experience. Fathers, you have an unparalleled influence in your kids' lives. Unparalleled. There's nobody you will ever come into contact with, most likely, where you have more impact on who they become and if or not they follow after Jesus. You can tell them to follow Jesus. You can plead with them to follow Jesus. And ultimately, it's between the Spirit and them whether they do. It's not ultimately on you, but you have a role. But if you tell them and you live different, they're going to follow what you do over what you say. Do you come home with stress from the day and answer your kids' questions with short answers, all 1,500 of them? Because I do. I let my stress come home with me. And what my kids see is me not trusting God with the things going on in my life. Boy's not old enough to see yet, but what Charlotte sees. Do they see a mundane disposition, someone who just walks through life unhappy? Or do they see someone who is passionate and driven and happy to serve God, to proclaim the name of Christ everywhere he goes? They're going to follow what you do over what you say. How we live matters. But I don't want to put too much pressure on you because I'm talking about moral living and living with joy, and it sounds like it's something that you have to force yourself to do, and it's not. It's something that is going to happen naturally if you have claimed the name of Christ. But more than how you live, how you love matters. How you love matters more than how you live. It mattered more in this account. Look at why they said the Roman centurion was worthy. They need to have an understanding of what worthy actually is. But why was this Roman centurion worthy? Because he loved their nation. He loved their people. He loved their God. That's why he was worthy, because he loved. Do people say you are worthy of God's attention because of how you love? In church, we have an understanding that we are not worthy. But to the outside world, often they misinterpret that. And they think, well, he must be worthy because he loves great. That's what they're seeing here. What would people say about how you love? Love's hard to define. How's it defined in this passage? It's defined by him doing things for people at great cost to himself. That's how we define love. Things you do for others at great cost to yourself. Here, he spent his money. I said he was wealthy. I don't know if he was synagogue building wealthy, but he built their synagogue for them. He probably paid with social and career equity. I'm sure the other Roman centurions didn't like how he governed. I'm sure the people, whoever was over him, I don't know the hierarchy of Roman structure, but I'm sure they weren't happy with how he governed either. They probably wanted him to govern more strictly, to govern with an iron fist, to govern with more force. Take joy in those executions. Suppress those people. Make sure they stay in subjection to Rome. And he said, no. The God I met over here says rule with love. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build them a synagogue. I'm going to invite them to my house for dinner. I'm going to make friends. And I'm going to rule with love. Do we allow love to rule our lives? Do we allow our unique areas of influence, our unique talents, our unique spaces to be used to love people? How can you influence the world through love on a day-to-day basis where you're at right now? How can we as a church influence this community with love better? We do a pretty good job of it here. There are people in this church loving on people in this community all over the place. And I could say the same for just about every church in this community. And every church has a different personality and a different unique way it can show love to this community. And if we work together, it is absolutely fantastic thing. And I don't ask you, how can we love better, as a slight or as something I have the answer to. I ask you as someone genuinely asking, where can we love more? Think about it. Where can we love more? Where can you in your life love more and showcase the grace of God more? Showcase Jesus more. Here's the point. Love magnetizes people. If the way we live intrigues people to look at us and say, what's different about him? Love is what magnetizes people to us. It's what draws them into relationship and allows us to have deeper levels of connection. Love is what builds relationships. And we get to say, well, we love you because he first loved us. Let me tell you about my God. And it's where we get to be vulnerable. Your vulnerability matters. The way you live matters. The way you love matters. And your vulnerability matters. Look at this centurion. He is in a position of immense power. He has immense wealth. And he says, I'm not worthy to have this itinerant teacher come into my house. I'm not worthy to have this Jewish man come into my house. And I'm not worthy to go out to him. This would have sounded weird to the people around him. He knew who Jesus was, but most of them did not. And for him to say, I'm not worthy to have this man in their house, would have sounded weird. Because he was the authority. He was the power. What do you mean you're not worthy? This would have made him look kind of bad in some of their eyes. Probably would have made him look bad in the soldiers following him eyes. And not only does he say, I'm not worthy, he empties himself of his authority. He says, I understand authority. I have it over people. He's got more. I'm not worthy and I have no authority here. I'm not going to command him to do anything. He could have commanded Jesus to come into his house. Jesus probably wouldn't have listened, but he could have tried because he did politically have a place of command there. But he didn't. He sent a request for Jesus to come, and then he empties himself. He says, I'm not worthy. I'm going to let you do all the commanding here because I know whatever you command is going to happen if you so choose. He allowed himself to become nothing. Are we willing to do that? When we live a way that intrigues and when we love a way that brings people into relationship with us, are we willing to become vulnerable? Because that's scary. Because people can use what they know about you against you. You're worried about what people think about you. He wasn't. He didn't care what all these people that was under his control thought about him. He cared about what God thought about him. He cared about what his servant, what was about to happen to his servant. He cared that he was on his deathbed. And that's countercultural too, because the servant was expendable. Most would have let him die and got another one. Oh well. But he's using his request to the God of creation, not for himself, but for someone else. That's love. And that's vulnerability. So many times we come to Christ as Christians and we get 5 or 10 years down the road and, well, I wasn't a sinner. What do you mean? I didn't do those things. We don't want to allow people to know about the things God saved us out of. All of a sudden we want to be seen as moral people, good people. If they know those things that I did back then, they're going to think different about me. Maybe. Doesn't matter what they think about you. It matters what Jesus thinks about you. Vulnerability is important because that's what disarms people. Your vulnerability disarms people. And I mean that 2 different ways. I mean it disarms their walls, and I mean it disarms their accusations, because the world is looking for cracks. They're looking for cracks in the way you live. They're looking for cracks in the way you love. They want to look at you and say, I knew it wasn't real. I knew it wasn't real. That's what they're looking for. And guess what? If that's what they're looking for in me, that's what they're going to find. They're going to find cracks. But for those of us who are in Christ, we look at those same cracks that are running down our arms and across our faces, and we say, no, that's proof that it is real. That's proof that Jesus is fixing me. You see how this crack's been filled in? You see this scar over here I've got? He healed that. You see this one starting? I'm praying that that one doesn't get any bigger and that he's going to take it away. The temptation that we face, the missteps that we have along this path of following after him, he forgives and he heals. And when we're vulnerable and when we allow people to see the cracks without having to look for them, it disarms them. It takes away their ability to accuse. It takes away the walls. The centurion was honest about his shortcomings. He was like, I'm not worthy to even talk to this guy. I'm not worthy, as it says other places, not in regards to this story, but I'm not worthy to strap his sandals. I'm not worthy. And he didn't care what it meant for his reputation. He didn't care what it meant for his position. What he cared about was seeing his friend healed. And what we should care about is seeing the people around us healed and be willing to be vulnerable in order to do that. What would it look like if you were more vulnerable with the people around you? If you were more willing to show how Jesus had healed you instead of just showing the moral outcome? You know, there's all kinds of signs. We see it on the social media sites that we mentioned previously of people protesting at abortion clinics. And it'll say, abortion is murder, and it'll say they're going to hell. Or they'll protest it at gay pride parades, and it'll say LGBTQ is sin, you're going to hell. Change. What if the signs they wore said, I'm a murderer? Let me tell you how I was changed. I'm an adulterer. Let me tell you how I was changed. Don't you think that might gain a little more traction? Don't get me wrong. There's room for calling sin sin. But most of the time it's after you've created relationship and you've gotten to know them and you've disarmed them. And they can see how Jesus is working to perfect you, working to heal you, and how he can work to perfect them and work to heal them. When you tell people you're not worthy, it gives them a chance to say, you know what, me neither. They're not going to take their walls down until you take yours down. How you live matters. How you love matters. Your vulnerability, your humility in which you proceed through relationships matters. But what matters most, I think, in this story is the depth of your faith. The depth of your faith matters. The depth of this centurion's faith mattered. It healed his friend through Christ. It sent people he was in relationship with to Christ. In Mark 6, it says, paraphrasing again, I can't perform any miracles here because you don't have any faith. No faith, no miracles. Deep faith, healing. The depth of your faith matters. A little faith is better than no faith, but a deep faith, man, look at what it's doing. It's changing everything in the way people encounter Jesus. I don't understand why the God of creation chose to work through us and chose to work through our finite amount of faith. I don't understand why he allowed Abraham to influence his decision in Sodom and Gomorrah. What if there's 20? What if there's 10? God's like, okay. What if there's 2? I'm going to destroy it. You can bring them out. But he does. He could have created a world that was perfect. He could have created a world where he had a bunch of minions to praise him and do exactly what he wanted to do all the time, and that's not what he did. He created this one that was fallible, and he said it's good. He didn't say it was perfect. He said it was good. And through Jesus dying on the cross and raising from the dead, he was glorified in a way that he wouldn't have been the other way. It was his goodness and his love was put on display as we're supposed to put love on display. His vulnerability was put on display. The way God chose to live as a human was put on display. People marveled at this man's faith. Jesus marveled at his faith. And I bet the others around him were marveling too. And it healed his friend. Do people marvel at your faith? Do people marvel at my faith? If I'm really honest with myself, I would probably say not very often. Because I'm so prone to offering the other things instead of a deep faith. Do your prayers, like this guy's prayers, landed at the feet of Jesus? His request? Do your request, do your prayers land at the throne of God accompanied by a faith that says he can do it if he chooses? Or does it land at the throne of God with a faith that says, well, if the stars align and the medicine works out right and everything goes just according to plan, he might? How we pray and the depth of our faith in those prayers matters. It matters for us and our salvation, but it matters for others and their salvation too. His faith was healing people around him. It was driving people to Jesus, and it was bringing Jesus to people. He created us, fallible beings, gave us purpose and jobs and mission and commission. He said, go and influence the world. Subdue it. Fill it. Yeah. Make disciples. Yeah. Go and influence the world. That's the command. It's a command in Genesis. It's a command in Matthew. Go and influence the world, and I'll be with you to the end of the age. And there's the hope. Because if the job is for me to go and influence the world, I'm going to fail again and again and again. No matter how good I live, no matter how good I love, no matter how vulnerable I am, I will falter. He says, it's okay, I'm with you. I won't falter. I'll fill your cracks. I'll use your shortcomings for my glory. I'll use your strengths for my glory. And we're going to make heaven a lot more crowded if you have a deep faith. So have a deep faith. Have a faith that brings people into relationship with you. Influence this world to look more like him, whether that's through your work, or through your family, or through the proclamation of the gospel, the good news. Go and influence. I don't care if you drive a truck. I don't care if you're a farmer, a janitor, an accountant, a missionary. Go and influence the world. Take the gospel where it's not. That's the command. No matter what your vocation is, that's the command. Take the gospel where it's not. To the ends of the world or to the break room. Sometimes we think it's easier to take it to the ends of the world than we do the break room. Fill the darkness with light. And do it with an immense faith that Jesus will save people. He will save the most unlikely. It's no coincidence that this account comes right after the sermon where he describes the world being turned upside down, the kingdom being turned upside down. The ones who are in are actually out, and the ones who are out are actually in. And we get this here. The one who would have been the least likely to be saved, the one who nobody would expect, the one in power, and the Gentile. And he's the first one we see exemplifying what it means to live out a life of faith in Jesus. The first one we see exemplifying what it means to be a member of the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom to come. The first one. God can save anybody. If he can save me, he can save anybody. Church, how you live intrigues people. It draws their attention. How you love brings them into relationship. It magnetizes them to you. How you are able to be vulnerable, the depth at which you're able to be vulnerable, it disarms them. Lets them tear their walls down. And your deep faith drives them to Jesus and drives Jesus to them. So my request to you, church, is to go influence the world. However menial you think your job might be, however basic you think the task is, influence the world through the way you live. Influence the world by the words you choose to say. Influence the world by telling them about Jesus. Now, if you're here this morning and you have never met this Jesus, if you're hearing all this and you're like, man, I don't know him, but you're starting to realize you're not worthy, I've got good news for you. He is walking to your house, and you don't have to stay inside. You could run out, and you can fall at his feet, and you can say, I'm not worthy. And he'll pick you up, and he'll say, I know, but I am. And when the Father sees you from henceforth, all he's going to see is my worth. If you don't think you can be saved, I promise you can. If this guy can be saved, we can all be saved. We can all find a way to live a life of joy because we are trusting in the promises to come. So this morning, I invite you to come and pray at the altar for people who you don't think can be saved. Come and pray for yourself to have a better influence on those around you. If you don't know him, Brandon will be down front. He'd love to speak with you. I'll be somewhere over there. I'll talk to you. Anybody in here will talk to you and tell you about how they've been saved. But whatever you do, don't do nothing. Do something. If you know him, influence the world. If you don't, get to know him.